Therefore Jesus said again, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on you do know him and have seen him."
John's Gospel records a whole range of Jesus' teaching, which have come to be called the I am sayings. Sayings in which he reveals something about himself and the difference he makes to us as human beings. I am the Good Shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the bread of life, and so on. Today's reading included two others. I am the gate, and I am the way, the truth, and the life. Let's try to do something bordering on the impossible today. Let's ask this question. Jesus is the gate to what or where? Jesus is the way to what or where? In truth, volumes could be written on this. But the New Testament summarizes the news of Jesus and about Jesus as gospel. That word gospel literally means good news. So Jesus is the gate or the way to discovering good news. So what is this good news? Well, it's good news in all sorts of ways, and I'm going to share some of them with you over the next couple of weeks. First, it deals with any confusion about our identity. Once we choose to follow Jesus, we begin to understand who we really are. Deeply loved children of God. That is our very deepest identity. Have you ever had an identity crisis? When life changes, as it often does, it may cause us to feel like who we are is changing with it. When our job changes, we may go from identifying ourselves as employed or with a job title like librarian or nurse to unemployed or retired. No longer does that skill or that title, that role define us. Before I went to train to be a church leader, I was a school teacher. That was something I was really committed to. But it wasn't until I gave up that job and became a student again that I realised that who I was had become tightly bound up in that job. It took me a whole long time to find out that my true identity was in God, not in a particular job or role. And it's something that I'm continuing to learn today in my current role. And yes, it can be painful. When our family changes, we may go from mum or dad of, insert child's name here, to empty nester or unknown. Other family changes could be due to change in marital status or a broken relationship. Our health could change and we go from able to dependent. Life brings so many changes, doesn't it? And many of these changes can bring feelings of fear and uncertainty. But the good news is that when we begin to follow Jesus, our deepest identity is made certain because God does not change. No longer is our identity based on what we do or who we are, but on whose we are. At the heart of what it means to be a Christian, then, is to receive a new identity. God takes all we are, the good and the bad, and transforms us as we become our true selves. And we become those true selves when we realise just how precious each and every one of us, how precious you are to God. Now, that idea could be alien to you, depending on our past. Some of us might have a distorted view of who God is. Is he someone watching us all the time, waiting for us to trip up? Someone with a list of rules that we need to live up to? Someone who wants to restrict us? But no, the truth is actually very different. Jesus shows us that God's nature is love and it's compassion. He's the perfect parent. Just think about it this way. If God had a wallet, he'd keep a picture of you right there in it. There's good news for human loneliness too. Jesus calls us into the family of God. We really can't be Christians on our own. At its best, this family which we call the church is built on love, on grace and on acceptance. Brothers and sisters together on this road through life. We were once a society that centred much more around family than it does today. Multiple generations often lived together under one roof. And when families did live separately, they usually didn't move very far away. These days, we're more of an individualistic culture. Many of us live far away from where we were raised. Our connections with other people take place probably most often in the workplace. But those connections can often, but not always, be shallow, fickle, or short-lived. Loneliness is a growing problem in our society. A recent study reported that the most lonely group in society are students. That's surprising. But next on the list are divorced people, unemployed people, single mothers, and the elderly. To point out how lonely people can be, an anonymous person put an ad in a national newspaper and it read, "I will listen to you talk for 30 minutes without comment for £10. Sounds like a hoax, doesn't it? But no, he was serious. And did anyone call? You bet they did. It wasn't long before this person was receiving 10 plus calls each day. The pain of loneliness was so sharp that some were willing to try anything for half an hour of companionship. I know a lot of people are finding similar things with the COVID-19 lockdown that we're living with at the moment. Loneliness is an even bigger problem just now. But the invitation to follow Jesus is also the invitation to community. We were not meant to be alone. The church, the Christian family then, is far from perfect. But at its best, it's a place where we can find true acceptance and belonging. It's a community we can call home. There's good news about our deepest regrets too. We all have regrets, don't we? Decisions we've taken which we may do differently given the opportunity. Shame or regret for things we may have done or said in the past. These things can weigh on us like heavy burdens. Sometimes feel like we're pulling around a sack of rocks. They're tied to us and we just can't let go. On the cross, Jesus, though, took all that stuff, all the weight of that onto himself and exhausted it. He took away its power over us. Because of Jesus, our past does not have to define who we are. God can and does bring new life, new beginnings. He offers forgiveness for the past and hope for the future. Now, we may need help from others to really experience this, but it is a hope we grow into as bit by bit we get to know Jesus. We've only scratched the surface today, and we'll explore much more next week. But do you see already why we can call this good news. Because of Jesus, because of his life, death and resurrection, there is always, always hope. Following Jesus is the path to knowing who we are at the very deepest level. You are God's beloved child. This path with Jesus is one we walk with others as part of God's family. The church at its best is a place of belonging and acceptance, of mutual support and togetherness. And the church is something we all build together. You have a part to play. So a couple of questions to leave you with. What can you do this week to explore what this good news means for you? How can you bring some of that good news to other people? How can you explore the depths and richness of life he says he has for you? Our church website and the Community of Soul Friends website are good places to start. So may you come to know how deeply you really are loved, that God is so much closer than you might think. May you come to know a true sense of belonging and live out the truth that our past mistakes do not define our future. May you continue to follow Jesus, or maybe for some of you, begin to follow him into the life you deeply yearn for. Amen.